Welcome back and good morning. We are on with another episode of What the Fuck Did I Just Read? Tech Sales and Marketing Edition. I feel like we haven't met in like 2 years.
I know, because of last week. It was really sad.
Yeah.
So where
Yeah.
was
Well,
oh yeah, last week we were off. The week before, oh no, that was last week, wasn't it? When I was in Canada as
that
well,
was
we were
last
off.
Yeah.
week. Yeah. Yeah. And then we missed you on an episode a couple times ago too.
Yeah,
It's a hustle. I know that I've been talking to a lot of folks and it's just been very busy the start of the year. Very, very,
Very busy.
very busy.
Very, very busy. I do know, I will say though, when you said, we're going to have to cancel this morning, I was like sad for about 1 second. Cause then I was like, oh my God, I have a whole hour. I'm going to get so much done. And I did. I got through so much stuff in that hour. I was so amped. But I missed everything.
Yeah, it is. It is sad, but I will say that it was quite nice to be able to drive without worrying that I'm going to miss hitting the record in the stream button because I take my kid literally, half an hour early to school. Poor thing. We just drop her off there, so that we can make it back in time for the show and then start the day off strong. But yeah, it was sad, but it's a rare occurrence. So it's good to be back. How are you two doing?
I'm great. I am excited for today. Yesterday I sent a screenshot of my calendar to Chris yesterday. He was going to DoorDash me some food because it was a dumpster fire. It was so busy. But today is a little bit more calm. I closed a good sized deal this morning, so that's exciting.
Congrats.
And I got my exercise in. I'm down 22 pounds since December, so that's good. I have pants with a button on today, guys. It's a big deal for me.
Awesome.
And we're slowly but surely getting ready to open up registration for the nonprofit event at RSA. So things are moving right along.
Right on. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm feeling a little bit dozy. I went to bed at about, I was looking at it, was about 7:30, 8 o'clock last night. I woke up briefly in the middle of the night and I've been asleep ever since. So I've crashed for like 14 hours. Body isn't overly happy with me at the moment. I feel not too bad, but my internal organs and my digestive system are just not very happy. As nice as I can put it, everything was evacuated from me yesterday afternoon. Like literally everything.
I'm sorry. That is not fun.
And I don't know why. I don't know if it's the I don't know, because I was off of metformin for a week because of just all the travel and everything. I was thinking to refill, so I started taking metformin again. Between that, and I was also had a funky stomach. So yeah, I'm kind of in recovery mode. I'm feeling a little, not very delicate, but a little funky. Thankfully, I'm not traveling. I was meant to be at a CTA event. I was meant to be flying back to Colorado today, but I totally screwed up on flights. I'm traveling, a bunch of other stuff, and I'm heading in the opposite direction from Colorado. So I'm like, I need to take a break. And so I think Tara hopefully will step in and take over that, which would be nice.
We'll feel better. There's a lot going around, folks. So stay healthy. And I feel something in my throat now. Anyway, all right, we have where's my water? Damn, hold on.
I can't tell if she's acting or no, she's serious. Okay, we'll feel better.
Yes.
Well, something's going on. Wait.
Yeah, don't. I've been doing that for 24 hours.
Okay, we're all good now. I don't know what happened there.
He's passing his bug via podcast.
I know. No, a lot of people have been sick lately. I hit something a couple weeks ago. My kid is bouncing up and down with something. But yeah, stay healthy, everyone. All right, we have a full agenda today. So today we're going to start off with the WTF moments. I have an example from one of our submissions from a special person over at Security Studio. And Chris, by the way, if you have something in the spam folder that has piqued your interest to talk about today, same Maria, by all means, please bring it up. And then I want to talk about something special, actually feedback from some people in discussions that I've had talking about forecasting, talking about how to understand, um, if a deal's gonna fall through, can we get any signals on that? Which is an interesting question, to dig into. Housekeeping for folks listening in, if you have questions for us, please, by all means, drop them in the comments. If you have feedback, drop them in the comments, or if you wanna come on the show, let us know, and we will bring you on the show. All right. WTF moment. So, our friend Jared over at Security Studio sent me a WTF moment. He got an special in mail from a competitor who offered him a $100 gift card. What would it mean if I gave you a $100 gift card? What would it mean to Security Studio if you were able to convert one-off consulting work to recurring revenue, grow your margins by delivering more higher value services, increase customer retention, create competitive advantage, blah, 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 blah. At this company, we work with partners like XYZ, and XYZ, I'm not going to say who it is, to deliver highly tailored continuous compliance solutions that accomplish just that. Now, this person wants to learn more about the existing compliance solution. Interested? If you're up for a 30-minute exploratory call, we will give you $100 as a thanks. Problem with this is that this company literally does not know what Security Studio does because they are competitors, and Security Studio does give assessments, just like this this vendor does. And I got the same things, very similar, a couple weeks ago from another competitor. I'm like, girl, we're kind of on the same team, but we're not. I am not your customer. So I want to get your initial feedback or comments on that kind of tactic.
Again, it's spray and pray. I mean, unfortunately, that seems to be what it is. It's I have a database, or I was given a database, or we gave a database to a third party, whichever way it is. We didn't do any validation, so chucked it out there, hoped for the best, and off they went. I think that's and it seems to be all of these seem to be the same case. I got another one that's sitting in the inbox this morning, and it's, hey, I looked at your LinkedIn, and I responded to one yesterday. I'm like, well, if you'd have actually looked at my LinkedIn and read the fucking thing, you would have seen this isn't the right way to approach me. But you didn't. Let's face it. It's a standard letter. It's a standard form. There's a couple of parts in there that you just add basic shit in there, and off it goes. And I think that is just a frustrating and a ridiculous way to do things. It doesn't work. And to your point, you end up hitting friends, family, foe, and everybody in between. It's asinine.
Yeah.
And exactly to Richard's point, can I please buy your time? It's like, no, fuck off. One, I'm worth more than $100. And secondly, no, just quit that shit.
Well, and I feel like the only people that would cash in on those types of things they're not your buyer. They're not the decision maker. They're not the influencer. Like the people that are going to jump at $100 are going to be more entry level.
It's going to be the analysts, which is
it's going to be, which is fine. Whatever. You're still having, but you're not even getting to the person you need to get to.
Right. Exactly.
Doing this. So I don't.
Yeah.
I don't see there's different things. There's things you can do, right? Like I remember I've done things where like I'm working an account, or I'm working with somebody and something that's valuable to them. Hey, there's a trade show in your area. Do you want to go? I'll get you a ticket so you can attend.
Yeah.
You want to do that? Like I did that with you, Chris. I bought your ticket to Armis one year.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do something, a C-level or a buyer in cyber, they're making plenty of money. They don't need $100 Amazon gift card, right? Like it's not. So give them something that's tangible that actually is going to provide them some value, I guess, if you're going to do anything. I have to do this after this call. I'm going to be at a trade show next week, and I got 10 extra tickets. So what am I going to do? I'm going to reach out to a bunch of people. Danny, I text you. I said, do you know people in this town? Can you please make an introduction? I've got tickets. Maybe they want to go. It's cold outreach, and it's not necessarily, I don't think it's buying time, but it's, hey, I have this. If you're available, would you like to attend it? It looks like it could be an interesting event, whatever. Come say hi to me if you want to. Also don't care. Just have these things. I want to get rid of them. And you look like somebody that could potentially use it. So I think also the messaging has to be tweaked a little bit, to show that you're interested in them as a person, and providing them with some sort of value, if that makes sense. Not, and this is, here's money and here's all about me. I don't, that's weird.
Yeah, 100%. Chris, do you think, apart from the event invites via LinkedIn, like, hey, can you, just take a free ticket where, cost is on us, come to the event, get some value. Does that also work, in your opinion, with regards to webinar invites? Because it's kind of like an event.
Yeah, it is, but less, because I think there's more of. I mean, I got 2 or 3 sitting in the inbox now. I look again because I haven't looked in the bloody inbox for a while. I'm like, oh, it's I got one sitting. I got a bunch sitting in the inbox right now where it's like, hey, where is it? I'd love to personally invite you to the first summit of the year. This quarter will focus on how you can scale. Blah 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 blah. Register now. And and it's a spray and pray, and I know it's a spray and pray because they used my fake name. And it's actually from a company that should know better. It's a company we actually buy services from. So, hey, people, you should know better. So there's a bunch of those. And I think that's, again, it's one of those where I get a lot of them on LinkedIn. Hey, we're doing a running of this or running of that. And it's, unfortunately, they're like, hey, we're running it next week. It's not far enough out in advance. I mean, again, you look at Maria, looking at your calendar yesterday, I'm like, A, scary. But B, I'm like, yeah, that looks horribly familiar. My calendar is this calendar I run on the iPad is 4 different colors, and it has a bunch of different stuff on it. And I'm booked out a couple of months in advance. And I might have some spare time in there, like a couple of hours here and there. But for the most part, it's a couple of months in advance I'm booked out. And so you invite me to something next week, the chances of it happening are pretty fucking minimal. Now, I'm more likely to escape the office and take a break for half a day than I am putting a webinar on, to be honest. Now, maybe I'll have it on in the background, but it's iffy. And I think part of the reason it's iffy as well. So if Maria hits me up on something, it's already an established relationship, or it's something where I know I'm not going to get added into a sales database. Whereas all of these ones where maybe I haven't done something with, if I say yes, then I'm going to end up inundated with a bunch of shit that I didn't actually want in the first place. So it's like, hey, I'd love to, but I don't want to end up on your fucking sales database. So it's like, how do you balance that? I don't need my inbox to now be flooded with crap just because I said yes to one thing. So there's got to be a balance in there somewhere.
This is my issue with automation. I think people should learn how to do automation well. And I say that like in all seriousness, I think automation is super valuable when it comes to outreach, but it has to be done very well and not in mass. Right? So when you're doing that in mass, you're hitting the wrong target. You're hitting them with messages that don't resonate, and you're just pissing off buyer. And the reason why I'm talking about automation is because there's another. Actually, I want to bring up this message that you sent, Chris. It was a couple weeks ago, where you. It's another WTF moment where you sent the individual the letter. Yep. And you also sent him the link to the podcast, and that person responded with an apology, and which I thought was nice, commendable, because not everybody responds with grace.
Right. Oh, yeah, very much so. Some tell you to screw off.
This person said, typically I do have a much more personalized approach first, especially to CISOs, and then follow up with a more templatized email. And I thought this was hilarious. It looks like I put you in the wrong sequence. And I said, we should make that a sticker. I put you in the wrong sequence.
Oh, no.
All jokes aside, you got to do it well, folks. You got to segment well too, if you're going to be using automation. Anyway, I digress. Any other WTF moments that you want to cover before we talk about the juicy topics?
It feels like it's this, for the most part, not completely, but it feels like it's the same stuff. It's like, take an extra couple of minutes. It's I'm not going to, and I said this, it's who is it? Alanis Morissette? Who is it? Wine, Dine, and 69. I can't remember who. I'm sorry, it is what it is. You're not going to get me on the first fucking date. Stop thinking that you are.
I think it is Alanis Morissette, but
Yeah,
yes.
it just. I'm not going to hand over the keys to my freaking kingdom after one damn day, and neither am I going to accept a proposal to go out on a date with you based off of an informal spray and pray. It's like you walking around the fucking dance floor going, "Hey, want to go home with me? Hey, want to go home with me? Hey, want?" 9 times out of 10, you're going to get smacked upside the head. 1 time out of 10, yeah, maybe something will get lucky, or 1 out of whatever the hell the ratio is. Stop doing that shit.
Yep.
You know?
Amen. Okay. I want to shift into, if I can find the right screen, where am I? I want to shift into.
I did that earlier when we were going live. I lost the screen with your faces and I couldn't find it. I was panicking. I was like, where'd it go? Because the stupid Macs, you can slide the things and they disappear.
Yeah.
And you're like, what happened?
All right. So I want to shift into a conversation based off of some feedback and questions I got from CMOs with regards to the buyer's viewpoint. This is, again, broad, high level, the buyer's viewpoint of the state of the market, how it's changing for them, right? How do the CMOs get more visibility sooner into whether or not a project is going to fall through the cracks during the sales process? Because we've all seen it, right? A deal is progressing, you even get to POV, and it looks like there's, opportunity to close there, but then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it kind of just dies, and we're not moving forward. Is there a way to, forecast or get any signal that might happen? And that to me is a very compelling question. So I do want to dig into it and get your take on it. Maria, I want to know from your viewpoint if you can describe how you currently track the progress of a sale, and at what points can you gauge if a project might not proceed as planned? That's a big question.
It's a big question. I think, everybody kind of does things a little bit differently. Every organization does things a little bit differently. And there's 2 different types of forecasting, in my opinion. There's forecasting for numbers, like, aligning with like a medic or something like that. But from a sales perspective, I follow a methodology called solution selling. There's a book that's really good, called the new solution selling. I think it's called. What is it called? Solution selling. Yes, it's a really good book. Shout out to my old leader, Joe Breen, made me read it, memorize it inside out and backwards. But it's kind of how I do that thing of forecasting if a project is or is not going to happen. That's like my entire job, is to be able to say without a shadow of a doubt, this deal is going to close, this deal is not going to close. Either way, it's fine, but you need to understand those points kind of very quickly. And the methodology that is outlined within the solution selling book, I have a prop. Do you want to see my prop? This.
Mm-hmm.
This is my prop. It says sale equals pain times power times vision times value times collaboration or partnership times compelling reason to act. To me, if I don't have even one of those variables spelled out and outlined, and I don't know what it is, the deal doesn't happen. So that's how I forecast. If I don't have each and every single one of these variables spelled out in the equation, there's no deal. If you have all of these spelled out and you know without a shadow of a doubt that the data points you were provided by your prospect or your customer are accurate and correct, the deal is going to close. It's that simple. That's how I do it. It works.
Are you open to sharing that artifact with folks here?
Yes. Absolutely. Cool. Of course I will. I'll take a picture and
email it to you. And then is the book The New Solution Selling by Keith?
Yes.
Or is it the other one?
It's not the field book, although I have that one too, but it looks like this, but it's not the field book. Literally, these are on my desk every day. I use them like I use them like crazy. See? Lots of notes.
All right, here, we're going to drop it in the comments here.
But that is
solutions
when
selling
when
book.
you follow kind of that process for successful sale execution, another thing that you're doing as part of the process is building rapport and trust with your buyer, because you have to ask very specific and targeted questions to uncover those data points. But it also shows that you're trying to ensure the success of both of you. So, help me understand this. Like, is there anybody else that needs to be involved? Is budget already approved? It's not like this old process of like the BANT that I don't really think applies anymore, because if there's not like the compelling reason to act, if there's not that spirit of partnership, it's not going to happen. So it's a little bit more, it's like the next level up from that, I guess.
Chris, can you explain, or has there been any experience where you've even thought the process of the sale is going to go through all the way to the end, and it just kind of fell through the cracks? Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah. I mean, there's been a couple, and I mean, sometimes, unfortunately, it's not even in our control. It's
Okay.
I mean, it's like anything with InfoSec. We are still at the behest of the business. And so things change on a fairly. I think it depends on what kind of an organization you're working for. So, I'll take my New Spire hat off for a second. I'll put my Boom hat on. And from a Boom standpoint, we're a large startup. Now, when I sit down at the beginning of the year and I put budgets together, that's based off of all sorts of forecasting and all sorts of assumptions. And throughout the year, sometimes those assumptions change. So, Maria and I might be having a great conversation about, I don't know, going off and buying purple elephants and implementing that into every single one of our data centers. Yet halfway through the year, we've realized that maybe we need to spend more on airframes, or maybe we need to spend more on systems or architecture or whatever. So within the business itself, in order for it to continue, budgets get shifted around. Now, unfortunately, last year, we were not involved. Last year, and to some degree the year before, we were not involved in that process. This year, very, very different, much more involved in the process. So I would get a heads up to go, hey, the pink elephant purchase is going to step out 6 months because of A, B, and C. Last couple of years, I'd go and say, hey, we're about to spend this. And I got your budget's changed, and closely followed by a WTF moment. Yeah, that's never a fun thing when you find that out when you're about to spend money, because we have a process. Maria and I talk. I already know I had the budget because I put it in there. Then I build what's known as a bluff. So, bottom line up, whatever. Basically, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm buying. Here's why I'm buying it. Here's the justification. Here's how it's going to change things. And that's when it, unfortunately, back then it hit finance, and finance was like, well, we've reassigned your budget. And I'm like, well, that's an interesting surprise I didn't know about. And so I think you find that sometimes in organizations where maybe you don't have as good a line of communication. That's obviously changed inside the org. And so that's also one of those where, as a CISO, you will get caught out and be surprised. Now, then it's got to be a very open communication back to Maria and go, hey, I'm sorry. It looks like they've reprioritized, they've redone this. It's going to be 3 months, 6 months. It's going to be 12 months, or you go back and go, hey, we're on pause for this. I mean, that's basically what I'm saying to a lot of folks at the moment is, from back with the Boom hat on, we are definitely in tread water mode until we know where some of the stuff is going. And I mean, that's just life. That's what it is. And it's the same thing with other organizations. So I think it depends on how effective the communications are across, and again, to Maria's point, it's, if your CISO is operating in a silo, then you've got to be a little concerned on that one. If your CISO is like, hey, yeah, I go and hang out with the finance guys and the CEO every couple of weeks, then at least that way that there's open communication, so that when you present something, it's not going to be a shock to anybody. That's how I look at it.
That makes sense. Like, how would you frame the communication from the seller to the buyer so that the seller could understand that kind of scenario? So I guess my question is,
that's the seller's responsibility.
100%.
The seller,
but let's say they don't know how to approach that. Like, how would they approach that?
I mean, I did it with you, Chris. I knew that regardless of what budget was, if Charles did not, I knew we didn't need to go to finance anymore. We weren't having to go to finance for anything that we did with New Spire a few years ago. It was already done, and we knew that. But I knew that if I didn't convince Charles, that was the risk. Like you were sold, but if I didn't pass Charles's muster, then it didn't matter, right? So so from a finance perspective, the way that I understand that, because to me, if the question I say, does this need to go to finance for approval before you can spend? Because people will say, I've got budget, I've got budget, I've got budget all day long. Okay, well, do you know if something's changed? Something could have changed. So I always ask the question, does this need to go through either a procurement, because procurement's another pain in the ass, procurement, or budget? Does it need to go to finance for approval? And if so, then I still don't have, that's power. That's power that I have not gained alignment from. So I don't have this variable yet. I have not gotten sign off from power, which at this point, it's not Chris, it's finance. Finance is ultimate power here. They have to approve it. And then I can say without a shadow of a doubt to my leader, this deal is going to go through. If I don't have that, if I don't know who all the people are involved in that process, that's a variable that I have not answered. And so that's a risk to the deal. Does that make sense?
I think the other thing that's useful as well, I've seen a couple of times, and there's always a variable in it, but what I've seen useful a couple of times is, hey, when on the sales side or on the partner side, when somebody teams up and says, hey, how can I help you, basically get it through or push it through or something like that. And so that's also useful, because again, it's, writing the bluffs and putting that stuff together can be a real pain in the ass, especially, if you're like, oh, I've just gone through the selection, I've gone through this, now we've got to put everything together. So having that partner that's going to help you provide the right info to make sure it gets through, that's huge, which I hate to say it means that CISO or that leader that you're selling into needs to be open enough. You got to have somebody that's willing to open the kimono a little bit and say, hey, yeah, I've got to get this, I've got to get this, and I've got to get this. And so it's like, all right, how can I help you? What do you need from me to help you justify the spend? At the end, and again, this is me putting the sales hat on, or, even from the news buy standpoint, this is me coming in as the VCSO consulting going, hey, we got to push this through. How do we do this effectively? How can I help you? What materials, what argument, what business, what focus do we need to do to help move this?
I want to go back, though, to some of the things or signals to look out for in more specificity, if we can. Finance, procurement is one thing. My
so that's
assumption,
power. Think of that as power, because it's whatever, whose ultimate power. If you don't know that and you don't have access to that person or those people, that's a warning.
Are there any other, though, like signals, like market shifts or new innovations, or I don't know, like what are other ways the C-level within the GTM teams can better prepare themselves for potential cracks in the process? If that makes sense.
I think it depends
where the deal falls through.
So I know from my standpoint, when we used to, so if I take my boom hat off, I put the Newspire or even some of the old companies I've run before hat on for a second. There were a couple of things. I was fairly blunt when I was doing it, because quite honestly, I didn't want to waste time. For me, first off, it was like, hey, where are you in the procurement process? Are you just sniffing around? Are you actually like, you're ready? You're like, hey, we're ready. A perfect example on this one is you get to like the end of Q3 and everybody's panicking because they haven't done their annual pen test. So everybody wants their freaking penetration test done in November and December. And it's like, hey, let's have a conversation. Let's try and get that done earlier, because shit ain't going to happen because there's too many of you asking for too few resources. So, but the other one I used to do was like, hey, are we playing competitive numbers? Are you going for the bottom of the barrel, or what are you basing this on? So this was always, and I was fairly blunt on it. I'm like, look, I'm not going to go spend a whole bunch of time putting together a nice prospectus for you for 50, 60 or 100,000 for you to come back and say, Fred Smith on the corner shop is doing it for 30. If that's what you're looking for, go use Fred, and we'll talk again at some point in time in the future. I don't mind that one. Or when Fred fails, then we'll come back and have that conversation. So I was fairly blunt on just asking simple questions, and because I didn't want to waste my time. I didn't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste any team's time. If they're shopping around, or if they're playing like RFPs, rarely would I go after RFPs because unfortunately, again, and a lot of times it was a race to the bottom. Who's got the cheapest? Well, that ain't going to be me, and I know it isn't. So if you're looking for quality, then I'm happy to be in the race. But if you're just looking for somebody to come in and break shit, well, hey, I'll give you 2 or 3 people who've got a pen test puppy mill, and go enjoy, have at it. When they miss everything and you come back to me, well, we'll have another conversation.
Maria, anything you want to add there before moving on?
I don't think a deal isn't gonna get derailed from emerging tech a lot of the times, like a deal mid-flight. But I do think that you'll start to you have to hear go to market teams need to be listening to the front line, which is the salespeople, and you got to be looking at close loss data to understand and it's up to the sellers to put that stuff in there. I have a situation right now where I literally texted my colleague and said, hey, I need this capability tomorrow to win this deal. And also it'd help with these 3. Can we go look and see what that would look like for us, please? And so it doesn't necessarily always derail like emergent tech, but you have to be cognizant of a shift in the way your competitors are doing things, and a shift in the way people are describing the vision for the problem that they're trying to solve. You have to be able to notice the trends in that quickly and decide what you want to do, if anything, about it, so that you can continue to go after the same type of market share that you were going after before. And so that to me falls under, it's still one of those criteria, which is vision. If you as a seller aren't listening to the person say, like the person says, I have this challenge, this is what I'm trying to solve for it, right? And this is this, and then you say, well, what do you want to do to fix that? And they should already. It's 2024. Most people have done a little bit of homework before they get on a call with somebody like me to have an idea generally of what they would like to do to solve for it. And if their vision for a solution doesn't align with the services you can provide or the product that you provide, you can either do one of 2 things. You walk away quickly and say, I can't help you, but here's who can. Or you can go down the process of what's called re-engineering their vision. I love re-engineering visions. It's like the hardest thing in the whole world, but when you do it successfully, it is like the most rewarding thing in the whole world. But to be able to re-engineer a vision, you have to stay away from technical feeds and speeds, right? Because those are black and white. Does this, doesn't do this. Does this, doesn't do this. Does this, doesn't do this. And you have to be able to navigate getting the buyer to explain what the vision is in terms of outcomes. Will it make this happen? Will it have this happen? And if you can steer the conversation into outcomes over tech feeds and speeds, then that kind of becomes a non-issue. But again, it falls back into one of those categories I talked about, right? The vision. So that, I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm seeing a couple of the questions on here, which is interesting. Ally said something really interesting. I don't fill out RFPs unless I help design or I get access to Power Behind I submit. And that's an interesting one. The problem is sometimes if you've helped put the RFP together, you don't get access to submit. I've been involved in that. I've actually been involved where somebody's brought me in to help build an RFP and you get paid for that contract instead. The interesting one, Brian Kant had a good one, which is like, should us vendors ignore RFPs? It seems more and more buyers are acquiring them. That's tough. It's unfortunate. I've seen it too often, and maybe this is just a slightly cynical view. I've seen it too often where an RFP gets put out, but the vendor's already been semi-selected, and all they're doing is justifying their selection by getting 3 or 4 other bids in. Rarely have I seen what I would classify as a fully independent RFP process. Normally there's some bias in it. And I think that's one of those interesting questions you asked is like, hey, I'm happy to spend 60 hours submitting the shit for your RFP, but how unbiased is the stupid thing? Maria, one caveat I would say on the one thing I have seen sometimes when I've been like putting together proposals is if like RSA or Black Hat is coming up, I've seen a couple of times where somebody's turned around and said, oh yeah, I'm going to wait and see what I see coming out there. And I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. Or, you just meet them there for coffee and walk around with them. I have seen that a couple of times.
I hate RFPs, you guys. I hate them.
Yeah.
It gives I just got ugh. I avoid filling out an RFP at all costs unless I know the buyer, right? Because I have the deal I won this morning. I had to do an RFP for that, but I knew the buyer. He's been a customer 4 different times. They require an RFP. Fine, I'll fill out your thing.
Yeah.
If I'm going to fill out an RFP, I've also had my executive leadership team send me RFPs and be like, it's a great opportunity. No, it's not. This is an RFP. This is not an opportunity. Don't call it an opportunity. It's a freaking RFP. If I'm going to fill it out, I will only fill it out if I'm going to be guaranteed more than 25 minutes on a phone call to explain my answers or whatever the case may be. And even then, I really just, unless I have insight into why we're going into RFP, is it required by your company? Because some companies it's a requirement for procurement. Fine, I get it. But if it's just some guy or gal that is making me do an RFP for the hell of it because they think that's how you need to go about buying stuff, to hell with you. I'm not doing it. It's the amount of work it takes to fill out one of those. I mean, days. It can take days unless you have I don't work at a 5,000 person company with a dedicated RFP team. I'm hunting and pecking all those stupid answers myself. And the way that you can't just copy. I could go on. And you can't just copy and paste answers either, because potentially there are people that actually read the damn thing. They all ask the question just a little bit different. So you have to shift your answer to, it is a waste of time, largely.
And it's for the customer, it's also not so useful because things don't match up. And so there's the manual process of trying to figure out.
I really don't think, and I've won, don't get me wrong, I have won a ton of deals that came from me from RFP, but every single one of those, again, came from a referral. It came from my network. It came from a previous buyer. It came from, so that's fine. I've also been in situations where this one particular person, he had 11 people fill out 11 different vendors he sent the RFP to. And this thing was like 95 pages long by the time it was completed. It took me like a full week of listening to Mozart and I am ADHD. So I do not do well with this. And I just think it is like whoever just said this. I feel like this was George, maybe, because it's a LinkedIn user.
Oh, RFP.
TPS report is a total freaking TPS report. I hate them. But that's okay. They're a necessary evil in some organizations. So I think understanding, is this requirement from procurement? Are you a government entity? What is the deal with this? Why are we doing this? Understanding why. And then if you have, otherwise I wouldn't spend I hate them. I just get mad. I told you how I really feel about it.
I wonder if that's actually something that's worthwhile. Again, I've had those ones where hey, we're inviting you to submit. I'm like, that's nice for you. You can invite who you like, but I'm not. At some point in time, I think some companies do get the message that a lot of us are like, no, it's just bullshit.
Well, and you can't, if it's a blind RFP, I don't know what your vision. I have none of this. Right. I have none of these variables. I don't know what the pain is. I don't know who your power is. I don't know what your vision to solve is. I have a list of literal 300 nonsensical questions that ultimately don't really matter in terms of getting to where you want to go. And then when they do agree to talk to you, they just want to go through your answers instead of actually sharing with you this kind of stuff so you can align with them. It's just a very frustrating, it's a frustrating process, but I also understand some companies, you have to do that, or leadership says that's what you need to do, or whatever the case may be, but you can still do those RFPs in a way that allows for partnership, I guess. You can also just ask, how thorough do you need me to be? Are you going to read this? Seriously, is this just, do I just need to blanket fill this out, or is this important, or what? And I've asked that too.
But again, it's okay. I'm security theater. Yeah, exactly. I'm going back to the whole dating thing. I mean, it's like freaking filling out a dating app. I mean, everybody's going to ask it a little bit differently. Everybody's doing it a little bit differently. And really, do you get to know the person behind it because they filled out the fucking dating app? No. This goes back to communication. If I'm going to If I'm going to hand over the keys to my kingdom to somebody, a fucking RFP is not going to convince me to hand the keys over. That's sitting down with you over progressive teas, coffees, understanding who the hell you are as a human, the organization you represent. And at that point in time, then we're going to have a really good conversation about the finances and everything else. It's as simple as that.
You know who sent me as part of the process? Peter Holcomb, Chris. He goes, I have to have you fill out this questionnaire. And I started laughing. I go, damn it. I go, I would love to fill out your questionnaire. How many questions is it? And he started laughing. He goes, I don't need it to be super intense, and it was only like 50 questions, so it wasn't a big deal. But being able to, we've already had conversations. I know him. He needs that to show leadership. Fine, I'm going to do it. But he was also very transparent and like, don't boil the ocean. Just give me some basic answers for these things so I can show.
Yeah, and I think that's where you get that collaborative.
Yes.
Like, hey, it is. And as a CISO, you get to fight certain things. You get to look at the finance folks and go, really? You get to go to leadership and go, really? We really need this? Or are you just fucking doing this for paperwork's sakes, TPS report sakes? And sometimes they're like, no, we have to have it for due diligence, fiduciary. Great. Okay, then we'll get it filled out. But don't expect anything more than yes, no on the fucking answer sheet.
We have a bless you. We have a bless you, child.
It's Gesundheit.
We have a great question also from Grayson, who's asking about getting early adopters. He has a product that works well on the back end, but needs refining for the end user to get max value. How do you recommend looking for early adopters when the tech is almost there? What messaging do you use? Like, hey, this will be really good in 3-6 months. We want to use it, invest time to help us refine it, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I've had a few of those over these last few weeks. And it's not quite, it's a little, I'm going half off topic on this one. I've had a bunch of people hit me up over the last couple of weeks. Apparently it must be innovation time at the moment because, hey, we got this really cool idea. We want to run it by you. We would love to take some time. Well, then fucking pay me for my time. Stop coming to me and go, hey, I'd love to run this by you, because one of two things happens. One, it's a pretty thinly disguised sales tactic. Or secondly, you want free consulting on what do I think about your product and do your product awareness. Fucking pay me for it up front. I'm done with this. I'm actually going to put a LinkedIn post out about this today because it's starting to piss me off. And it is starting to annoy me because it's like, hey, we want you to help. We want you to do this. We were an early adopter. I'm me. I have to put food on the table. Food on the table equals time. Time equals billable. You want my time, you pay for it.
Yep.
I also think start with your existing customers. Like, I've come to you twice, Chris, and been like, hey, we don't do this yet, but we're going to try it. Can you try it with me? And if it works, great. And we'll charge you eventually for it. But like, can we just see if it works? And I think it start with friendlies and ask them to be like design partners. That's the, like Danny with Cyberbrate, right? I'm a friendly, you're one of my BFFs. And I'm a seller, so I'm your target market. So of course you're going to open it up and say, go look and poke holes at this thing for me and tell me what you think. But I already said I eventually intend on paying for this because it looks sweet.
Yeah.
But you have to, I think finding friendlies is one way. Calling it something like a design partner is another option. But if you're going to go to net new people, I mean, you got to give them something for their time.
And I think that's it. It's pissing me off. I'm like, how many fucking hours a day am I going to spend doing, hey, this is cool, this sucks, and you're going to bleed me for time. I come to the table. This is, I think, what pisses me off. And this is, I'll use Sivan at Anixia as a perfect example of this. So Sivan at Anixia, I knew Sivan Evolve, but Sivan's like, hey, we got something new. We're doing something. We would love to have you as part of the advisory team, for which we will give you, a percentage, or we'll give you something. Would you be interested? Again, it's back to that, hey, we'd love to have you present on stage, ... Well, who's paying for my fucking flight? Am I doing this out of the kindness of my heart, which I will do sometimes, depending on who it is, probably more than I should do. But at some point in time, it's like, folks, I got to put food on the table. I do actually have to, this roof in the apartment over my head actually has to be paid for. The electricity that runs this has to be paid for. And therefore, there's only so much free. And if it's a 501c, or if you're doing things out of the charity side of it, I got you covered. But if you're eventually going to charge money for the fucking thing, then I hate to say it, but come up with something.
Mm-hmm. All right. Ally says he likes to do a lot of development by giving sweetheart deals to startups if he needs net new people. Yeah,
right.
100%.
I got it. I'm not a startup. And what am I? I'm not a startup. I'm not going to benefit from it from that standpoint. If it's my company and I'm being paid for by Boom, then maybe that's a different conversation. But if I'm, as I am at the moment, I mean, yes, I'm still obviously CISO over a Boom for which I get something, but the rest of it is, it's on my back. I'm out there hunting and gathering now myself for me. And at that point in time, it's time equals money. End of conversation.
I want to get into an actual question that ties back to some of the stuff that we were talking about. It's a big topic, so we might have to drill down into it at another time as well, as a continuation. But Chris, how do you measure the effectiveness of your security investments?
Ooh, that's a really good one. Actually, that's and I don't want to get into a sales conversation, but honestly, that's a big chunk of the reason that I'm hanging out with Savannah and Nixia.
Okay,
that is measuring the effectiveness of what we have invested into security. That's the whole logic for this damn thing, or that's a big chunk of the logic for this thing. It is looking, so a lot of the effectiveness is for me is how well has it integrated, how much are we using it. So there's a big thing. So a perfect example would be, well, let's take Sentinel-1. So let's take Sentinel-1. We have Sentinel-1 deployed again through Newspire, through Maria. If we'd have just chucked Sentinel-1 in and gone with relatively defaults, I would say that we'd failed. If we had gone in and just put it in and had it reporting, I'd say we would have failed. But the fact we have it tuned, we have it catching stuff, we have it effectively monitored and managed, we can do ads, moves, changes, profiles, additions, we do all. Time has been taken by both Newspire and Boom to effectively integrate it and use it as a tool. And we're using it in such a way that we're getting value out of it. We're using it in such a way that it is a continual thing to be done. We're using it in such a way that it has become a core competency, shall we say, of the organization. We're pulling the logs out, but we're effectively using it to manage and do some interesting stuff with the endpoint. So that to me is a big one. Same thing now, conversely, on the absolute opposite end of that, some of our monitoring and scanning stuff. So, we use monitoring and scanning tools, and those tools generate wonderfully long 400-page reports, which are no fucking use to man, nor woman, nor beast, nor child. So that we had to take and go, how do we tune this? How do we do something with this? So rather than just going, well, it's a problem, I'm not going to deal with it, you then have to go, okay, how are we going to use it more effectively? What can we do? How do we work with people to get the maximum value? But again, that takes time. So the stuff that we're building on the Nixia side is to go, okay, how effective are you using it? If you've got 100 tabs inside this fucking tool, am I only using 20 of them? Am I using 40, 60? Or how much am I actually using this tool to the extent it can be done? I mean, there's so many tools out there that people just, they implement, they put the check in the box of compliance, and they use just the surface layer of it. They don't dig down and go, holy shit, it's got mobile, or it's got browser, or it's got this, or it's got this. Oh shit, we can do this with it. That takes sitting down with a design partner, that takes sitting down with Newspire and going, hey, okay, we're using this bit, what are we missing and how do we deal with that? And then having our team put time into it, and continue that cycle. So there's ways of measuring that. And again, that's a lot of the stuff that we're building out. It's kind of cool. And it's one of those where now I don't need to go buy 6 other products because I've actually made the fucking best use of the one product I bought.
I feel like we should talk about it in more detail at some point, and maybe bring on Sivan to show how they could, practitioners can do it more prescriptively at scale. That's an interesting topic. And yes, tool sprawl is real, Gene. I had a discussion with Gene about this a couple months ago too.
I've walked through organizations where they've got 3 of these and 2 of these and 4 of the endpoints. Here's the other reason that tool sprawl is real as well, which I think is ridiculously frustrating, which is where you walk into an organization and the various teams inside technology aren't collaborating effectively. And one of the most infamous ones I will never forget is I walked in and, the security team were buying their monitoring and logging tool because the network team didn't like what they were doing, and because this team, and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, why do you not go walk into their meeting and go, hey, I got tea, I got coffee, I got biscuits, and I got fucking donuts. Can we work together?
Yeah.
So
Another huge topic to drill down into.
Man, you know what? I was on a prospect call recently, and this person, I'm not sure what he's trying to buy, but he pulled up the list of the technologies that they've purchased from a security perspective, and like 12 of them do the same thing. And I was like trying to say, can I, as part of this, can I simplify what we're doing with all of, I mean, you don't need, I think there was 4 different types of vulnerability scanners, one doing internal, one doing external, one is part of an MDR solution, and one on age. It was like, I was like, what are we, why like this? And it was, each one had a particular thing that this person liked. But it was so, I didn't know how to navigate the conversation, because I was like, you have so much stuff here that you don't really need.
Yeah.
And none of it's solving the pain that you're talking to me about. So can I replace some of this? Can we consolidate some of this? You can do all of the things that you're talking about, like with 3 things. You don't need 13 of these things. It was really bizarre.
Well, what would have resonated with you or no, let me rephrase the question. And this is for both of you. Again, another very big topic and very relevant, because I talked about I had a similar conversation with a sales team yesterday over at Nucleus. What would stand out to you that would help you understand which to go forward with, or have a conversation with, or evaluate? Because there is so much, like, how do we differentiate as vendors is what I'm trying to say. Like, what stands out?
Ooh.
I don't know. I mean, I have an idea when it comes to technology. Like SaaS is it does this and it does this. It doesn't do this. It doesn't do this. So there's that. And then, I mean, I don't know. That's a Chris question, I think. I don't know.
Let me give you, so again, I think the biggest one for me, so perfect example, and I will name names. I remember years ago working with Dell SecureWorks, and I remember integrating a company into their MSSP type of solution. And the challenge is, we had to put tech on site, we had to put tech on the systems, we integrated them, and then it kind of went quiet. And you didn't hear anything. And then you didn't hear anything. And it stayed quiet. And then you got a bill at the end of the month, and you're like, all right, I'm okay paying for this, because that's what I signed up for. But is it working? Is it doing what it needs to do? And then it stayed quiet. Versus with Maria and the NewsBuy team, it was like, okay, we're going to do an MSSP type of service. We're going to have all our logging and monitoring. Great. It isn't just Maria I'm dealing with, it's Maria and a team. And by the way, as part of the service, we're going to do A, B, and C. And as part of the service, here's your portal. We're going to train you. We're going to teach you. We are going to have regular touch-based sessions. You are going to learn the very fucking tool that you are paying for. And you're going to continue to learn it. Oh, and by the way, we're going to run a training exercise here, and we're going to show you this, and we're going to do reporting, and we're going to do this. We will continue to drive value, not show value, because we're going to invoice you every single month. Therefore, we need to get you to pay the invoice without arguing about it. But we're going to drive additional value. We will demonstrate to you how to use this tool. Now, sometimes that's professional services. Sometimes in an organization, when you buy a tool, you're offered the option of like, hey, do you want training for 3 weeks? And unfortunately, too many companies don't pick up that additional level of training or professional services, which is fucking ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. I'm like, you're an idiot. You spend $100,000 on something and you won't spend $10,000 or $20,000 on fucking training how to use it. You bunch of fucking dickwits.
What did I say about vocabulary, Maria?
That's true. Okay, so let's take this into the real world. You as an individual, I hand you you've come over on the boat, okay? You're in America land, and I've just handed you $100,000 and gone, you must go buy a car. You've never driven a fucking car in your life. And you go to the Mercedes dealership and you buy yourself a semi-nice, because it's only 100,000. You buy yourself a semi-nice Mercedes, CLS 63 AMG. You get a used one, let's just say for 100,000. You're sitting there like, oh, I've got this wonderful fucking car. It looks great. It's wonderful. Windscreen wipers do this shit. Engine makes a wonderful sound. Fucked if I know what I'm doing with it. I get into it and I can push all sorts of buttons. Fucked if I know what it does. Why don't you spend that extra $10,000 or $20,000, or spend $80,000 on the car and $20,000 on learning how to fucking drive, going to an AMG driving school, learning about advanced driving techniques, and then you can take your $80,000 bloody Mercedes AMG and drive the ass off of it and go through a set of tires in 2 track days. That to me is the difference in the real world. It's investment. You have to spend time yourself in investing in the very fucking tools you've just spent a ton of money in, and your team. And to me, this is the other part of it, is a perfect example. So let's go back to Newspire and Maria. Hey, we put in Center One, we put in Newspire Sims, we put in all the stuff. Why the hell wouldn't I level up my own security team on giving them additional training? We've got AWS, we've got HPC stuff in AWS. They offer free fucking training. My team, go take the training. 1, because it levels you up as a human being. 2ndly, because you get free training. 3rdly, you can put it on a resume. And 4thly, because now you know how to use that AMG more effectively.
Yeah.
I mean, this is simple.
George is dropping truth bombs here, by the way.
I was just going to read that one. The differentiation of approach and process is the differentiator. That is exactly what I was trying to say. Thank you, George. That is the differentiator. It's the approach that you take when you go through the process that makes you unique, not the feeds and speeds of the stupid shit you're trying to put in the environment. Right. So, yes, that's what I was trying to say. Thanks.
Amazing.
Somebody's going to the AMG driving school in May. Tell me which one, because I'm still an instructor at some of those schools.
Is that George saying that George is driving? I'll have to figure out which one.
I've done the Laguna. I teach at Laguna, Road America, and one of the other ones. So yeah, but I mean, this stuff.
It's probably Justin, by the way.
Right.
Anyway,
but it's one of those. Again, it's. This is just in life, as in life, as in digital. It should be the same thing. In life, if I hand you something, the chances are you're going to spend. I know the AMG experience, for fuck's sakes. I helped do some of the driving course, for God's sakes. I helped build some of it. I think it's one of those things where we unfortunately put things in and we just expect it to work. We don't take the time to customize. We don't take the time to adapt. We don't take the time to actually learn what it's done. And it isn't just compliance checkbox. Sometimes it is just time. We, from a CISO standpoint, maybe don't necessarily put enough time aside. Maria, from your standpoint, I know when we started talking, you were like, hey, I'm going to need your resources. This isn't something we're going to do. This was a fairly blunt, hey, the only way this succeeds is if we work on this together. And I think that's the big thing. It's not just a paycheck and a renewal every year. It's like, hey, how do we actually make sure this thing, which means that I think the sales folks and the folks on the account have to have a vested interest in making sure the client succeeds.
Well, and being honest when it's not succeeding because of the client. Like I will straight say, hey, this isn't, I have to charge you for this. And it's not even halfway done because you're dicking around. We got to get this done. So it has to be a transparent, we got to work together. I will say though, the tool thing is not just we just got a new intent platform here at Newspire that I kept logging into, turning on the training video and then promptly logging out of because my screen didn't look right and I just didn't have time to deal with it. And it turns out it was a permissions thing. Like the whole time I was not, my friend, my colleague, Patrick was like, you're just now telling me that you have the wrong permissions set up. We've had this for a month. And I'm like, have you seen my calendar? I don't have time to learn this thing right now. I have to do my job first. So also making sure that you understand the level of effort it's going to take for people to get in, learn the thing, use it effectively. Right. It doesn't happen overnight.
Right. 100%. I love this. We are headed towards the end of the session. Any imparting thoughts before we sign off?
Buy once, buy it right.
Oof, that is the ideal state.
Dream.
Yes.
I like that though. Buy it once, buy it right.
Yeah.
I think is good. And I will send the screenshot of that little sales equation thingy to Danny so she can get it out to the masses.
Sweet. Yeah. And I will say, stay healthy, everybody. And also, by the way, it wasn't Justin, it was David Cross. Shout out to David, who's going to the driving experience. So he is no stranger.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. This has been another episode of What the Fuck Did I Just Read? Tech Sales and Marketing Edition. We will see you next week.
Bye,
Take
guys.
care. Stay
And
safe.
gals.